Hello, welcome back to Mosaics. I'm your host, Holly Beach with the Idaho Office for Refugees. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Raquel Reyes. Raquel is the Director of Programs and Operations at PODER of Idaho. She was born in LA, but at the age of 2, she moved to Idaho and grew up in Wilder, a small agricultural town about 40 miles outside of Boise. Raquel's life work has been in social justice. She's been a vocal advocate about the injustices she has seen in the workplace. Raquel's background is in immigration, and she helped found an immigration program at the Community Council of Idaho, known as Familias Unidas, Immigration Legal Services. Raquel has been married to her husband for 19 years. Happy anniversary this month, Raquel.
Thank you.
And she has 3 adult children, 6 grandchildren, 3 dogs, 3 cats, 2 goats, and lots of poultry. So you're busy with that as well, I imagine. Welcome to Mosaics, Raquel.
And thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about you.
Wow. There's a lot. I mean, like I said, I was raised here. I raised my children in Nampa. They're Nampa High graduates, or not Nampa High. Let me retract that. Nampa School District, yeah. Skyview High.
Skyview High, me too.
Yeah, my kids would be like,
Mom.
Right.
Yeah, those are our biggest rivals, so you don't want to get that.
Right,
and,
right.
Yeah, we go back too, because your daughter was my basketball coach at Skyview, and she was the best. So,
she was at NNU for 11 years as an assistant women's basketball coach. She now works for the man, I say. She now works for the man, which is the state government. Yeah. But yeah, we do go back. So, like I said, I was raised in Wilder, and my parents were the ones that taught us about social justices and being advocates for marginalized community in our small town, as it was an ag town. We got a lot of seasonal farm workers come in around March, and we'd see them leave around October. So there was very few of us Mexican Americans that were based in Wilder. Our school is pretty, our percentage was pretty small of people of color in our school. So my parents just always ensured that we should defend people's rights. And so, of course, I'm very vocal, and I'm very outgoing. So I'm not afraid to speak up and say, like, hey, that's not right. Mm-hmm. And so just my passion grew from there. And then I took this sociology class in college, and I had a little disagreement with my professor, and it just turned into a point for me that was what I was going to be my life work. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted to fight for people's rights.
Mm-hmm. And growing up, can you share a little bit more about your family life, what your parents did, and what it was like for you in Wilder?
Wow. So my dad was very well known, again, because there was very few Latinos in the community of Wilder. Those that came in would leave. They were seasonal. My dad had a Spanish bilingual church in Wilder, and my mom was a housewife or stay-at-home mom. So my brother and I were very fortunate. When my older sisters were growing up, she did work, and then my brother and I had mama full time. But yeah, so growing up in Wilder, I mean, what was there to do? We had to come to Caldwell. There was nothing to do in Wilder. We had a drive-in that was very popular with the students, right, in high school. We had couple stores. Wilder's really dead now. I mean, it's really died. It was vibrant when we were there. When I was growing up, there was a lot of, there was a large population during the seasonal time. And so there was a lot going on in Wilder growing up. I too played basketball and volleyball at Wilder High School. I went my first year to school in a private college to play basketball. And then I came home, and I've not left Idaho since. So yeah.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, that's my life.
Yeah. What's funny about Idaho is sometimes you don't, you stay. I've stayed too. And it's.
Well, I've stayed now because my kids are here and my grandchildren are here. Be it for me, I would have moved a long time ago. Yeah. To another state.
With maybe more aligning values for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So share a bit more about the work that you do to build Idaho into a more inclusive place. You work with PODER. Can you share about the populations you work with and what you do?
So PODER of Idaho was created in 2016 when they were trying to rescind DACA at that time. Actually, there was Maria Andrade had started this immigration organization project, and it was the spinoff, or it grew from there. And I went to hear these young people at a rally at the Capitol building, and I said, they remind me of me at that age. Mm. So I introduced myself, and we got to know each other. And so when the PODER finally unified itself, they asked me to come in as a board member, and I said, absolutely, I would love to be a board member for PODER. And it's just grown since then. Our focus group is the Latino community, not just undocumented, all people of color, all Latinos. What we want to do and our goal is to educate and inform our families of just anything that will affect our community, so that they're aware and that they know that this is something that will affect us in the long run, and this is how we can advocate for our rights. Mm-hmm. And that's one of our things is voter registration. We do a lot of voter registration drive, and then we do the get out and vote, getting people registered to vote. We also presented Manejando Sin Miedo, driver license for all. And after decades of work, it did get through the transportation department last year. And that was a very big win for not just PODER, but everyone that has worked on that for the past decade or so. And it was never even listened to before. They never heard it, never brought it into the committees. So that was such a big win for us. So we have to count those small victories, right? Mm-hmm. It stayed there. The House would refuse to listen to it, but that was still a victory for us. And so driver's license for all has been a big passion for PODER of Idaho too, because all our boundary states provide driver's license to the immigrant community or undocumented community. And because safety first, protection, and it brings economy to the state. Mm-hmm. They pay for licenses, they pay for their drivers, for their insurance, they have to pay for their license plates. So it generates income for the state.
Yeah, and I remember being at that hearing in the committee about just the safety, the driver's education, and how it makes the whole community safer to offer that resource for people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So those are two of our major things. We host a conference every year. Last year, C of I was gracious and enough to provide us the space. We had over 200 attendees.
It was a great conference.
Thank you, Holly. I was really excited about that conference. We have, I want to say 12 workshops. This year we did 12 actual different workshops. It never repeated. So you had to figure out where you wanted to go, because that was your one-time shot. Your one-time shot, right? And our keynote speaker was amazing. So we hold our conference every year. We're shooting for March this year only because May I have my grandson graduating.
Congratulations.
And I have three nieces graduating. So May will be a very busy month for me. So we're shooting for a sooner date for our conference this year.
And you work with a lot of populations that I'm sure are feeling anxiety after the election. Can you talk about what people are going through right now?
Well, I'm just going to share my own personal story. You know it. We've already done this together through another platform and with another organization. I am in a mixed status marriage. I've been with my husband, as you said, married to him 19 years, and we were together for 23 years. So we've been in the system, or trying to navigate the system. And, my background's immigration, so I shouldn't be struggling. I'm going to say since 2016, we've been trying to get his immigration status as a legal resident here. And we're still in limbo. We're still waiting for it to be approved. We're still waiting to go forward. And in 2016, that was my fear. And I told my husband, you know what? I know you don't want to, but I'm going to apply. We need to do something. I'm afraid for you. And if I'm afraid, and I know the laws, I can't even imagine what my community's feeling. But we had a gathering last Monday, I want to say, with a group of our community. We had 16 people show up. And we talked about that. We talked about that fear. We talked about the privilege people are going to enforce upon us, right? We're seeing it already. Just things that we as a community need to unite and mobilize and say, we're not going to stand for this. We're not going to do this. But there's a lot of fear. Last night I had my YouTube channel, and we talked about that. Like we want to be on the offense. We don't want to be on the defense. We want to be prepared for those anti-immigrant bills that come up, because I'm sure that Idaho will follow a lot of those Texas bills, those Florida bills, or the Republican National Platform, whatever bills come out that will directly impact the immigrant community and the undocumented community. So we want to be on the offense. So we're going to prepare our community, not only our staff and our volunteers, but what we're going to do moving forward for the next 4 years, and especially this new legislative session that's coming up.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel a sense of connectedness and strength throughout, since the election, through the community of what's been taking place already?
I honestly do. I left the gathering, and we called it the gathering, and we just said, come share your feelings, your thoughts with us. And I left there exhilarated, because we had 16 people show up, and I didn't expect that many people. And they were excited. Like, this is what we have to do. This is what we need to do. And let's meet again so we can create a movement. Mm-hmm. They want to create a movement in Idaho, which has been lacking in Idaho. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say that it's because of my leadership, because we have had strong leadership, Latino leadership here. I think it's just really hard for us to get the community involved, one, because of fear, and two, because many in our community, especially like in the Treasure Valley, they're working. They have to survive. A lot of them are at minimum wage jobs. So they come home, they're tired. They don't want to come to a meeting or a gathering or whatever you want to name it. It's not that they don't want to be involved. They just don't have the energy or the time. And again, the fear factor of it all. So for me, that want and the desire to have a movement and do something new, and that really excites me. Mm-hmm. I look forward to that. We are going to have another meeting with the group that was there. We just send out a survey to ask them, what is the best date and time for them. And then we're just going to, actually tomorrow we're having a staff meeting with everyone, and we're going to start planning out what that movement's going to look like for us and for the group. And we did ask everyone to bring a person that, a new person with them to the next meeting. So, it's exhilarating, but at the same time, it's a lot of hard work and a big fight. And Paul said something to me yesterday, and it says, power in our strength. And I just took that, and I'm like, I'm going to use that, Paul. I love that. I said, because it is. There's power, there's strength in power. And so we need to, as a community, we need to become stronger. If your family can't be there, then find somebody that can be there to represent, and that's willing to, and not afraid to be a voice.
Yeah, and in Idaho especially, so much of our state's economy, culture, families are so tied with immigration, whether it's the current generation or, for me, maybe a couple back, but so many of us can trace back to when and why our families came, and then the makeup of our state, it would crumble without immigrant populations. I mean, you look at the food that we eat, just so much of the value of the fabric of our culture and society. And I hope for the refugee communities too that we work with, it's the message I want to say is, no matter how loud this painful rhetoric can get during the heated election season, or the fears and anxieties that we fear about what's going to happen. Right. Overall, the the feeling is gratitude and, for the people who are here and part of the community.
Because, and I'm glad you brought that up, because with the announcement of mass deportation and those things, no one that's here under any type of immigration relief is going to be safe. Mm-hmm. We have, and people just say Mexicanos, los Latinos, the southern border. It's not, Idaho has a lot of immigrants from all over the country. And it's not just us. We have people here that are not just from Mexico that are have some type of immigration relief, right? And it's being threatened right now. Mm-hmm. And if people don't understand that, you better understand it real quick, because it is being very threatened.
Yeah, and it would be incredibly damaging overall for our state if some of these proposed policies come to pass. And at this point, we don't know what is serious and what is campaign.
I think it's serious. It's serious rhetoric. It's just that I don't know how our administration or at that level would be able to pull it off. Mm-hmm. I can see where we'll probably have more workplace raids. I can see where there'll be more traffic stops and use that as a form of detention or detaining. And working with immigration and having these people deported. I don't know if you know this, but our Canyon County Sheriff is the president of the National Sheriff's Association, who aligns a lot with this new administration's beliefs and how they want to carry out. And so for us in Canyon County, that's really scary for us. Like, so if you don't turn on your blinker, you forget to turn on your signal light or whatever, the fear of being pulled over is just raised another 3 notches up.
Yeah.
The stress level. We live in fear anyway, as an undocumented community, as an immigrant community, or even simple asylees and refugees. We live in that fear, right? And so this just strengthens that fear. That just exacerbates our fear. And so I think that if people aren't taking this serious, they really need to take it serious.
I don't know if you'd feel comfortable here sharing more about this, but when you shared with the Define American Project back in 2020, you had talked about limbo and this fear when your husband is on his way to work that you're going to get a text or a call. Can you go into what that's like for your life every day? If he's like in the morning when we get ready for him to go, and I'll say, be careful, drive safe, I'll see you tonight. And I'm looking at my watch. If he's not home at his normal routine or normal time, I'm stressing out, worried like something bad's happened. I don't know if he got arrested or pulled over, and it's very stressful for me, and I'm always worried. I mean, he has to work, he wants to work, and he contributes because he has his mom in Mexico, and he has 3 sisters, one who is epileptic, that he still helps, and we still support them, and so it's important for him to work. Be it for me, I would like to keep him like in a glass case at home, right? But it's scary. It's scary every morning and every evening that he leaves the house and leaves me at home, because it's just me and him in the house plus all the animals, right? So I the only thing I can just say, is pray and hope that everything's fine and he is going to come home that evening. Mm-hmm. I hear this sentiment a lot. You probably do too. Is, well, I'm fine with immigrants as long as they do it the right way. What do you say to that? I hate that. I hate that expression, and it just angers me because, first of all, go back to your American history. As the colonizers came in, they just signed a little book that they came in. There was no vetting. There was no requirement to pay money. There was none of that, right? So doing it the right way, when they say, oh, my ancestors came here, they did it the right way. No, they did not. This system was created because the fear of the minority people coming into the country. Again, that supremacy, to be in power, and that's why this whole system was created. Like, we're going to be overrun. So
when people say do it the right way, there is only one way for an undocumented person to have legal permanent residency, and that's through marriage. There's a lot of specialized visas, tons of them. If you're a doctor, an engineer, scientist, whatever those professional, you could get a visa to come in. Sometimes I think, and I don't quote me on this, but I could always reach out to my attorney friends. Sometimes those people in those specialized positions are able to change their status from a LP to a permanent resident and not just a visiting physician or scientist or whatever, engineer, whatever. There's the TPS, which is a temporary protective services, and that's like for the Haitians right now, Nicaraguans, Salvadorians, Venezuela. So, but that's temporary. I mean, it's been going on and on and on, and they've carried that visa, but they never know when that visa is going to be revoked. All it gives them is protection from deportation, ability to work. So they get employment verification and they get a driver's license. That's what they get from a TPS. It's not this guaranteed, you're staying here forever kind of thing. So when you say do it the right way, or they say they should become citizens, well, you can't become a citizen until you have legal permanent residency. And that alone, the cost is exorbitant. And especially if you hire an immigration attorney, that you're easily looking between $5,000 to $10,000. Oh. And who has $5,000 sitting around just to, take care of what you need to take care of? So do it the right way. I hate that. I hate that little sentence. I hate when I see it because I feel like people don't want to educate themselves. And when you I try to argue the point on social media platforms when people say that, or when I'm in a group, they don't want to hear the truth, right? They like that rhetoric. They want to keep that rhetoric because it instills fear in people and say, okay, yeah, that person is my enemy. We don't want him here. And so, yeah, there is no right way. One way only. Either you're born a citizen or you're married to a U.S. citizen who can apply for you to get some type of immigration relief.
In your marriage, are some of the barriers that cost, and is there like a long wait list?
I think since 2020, when we had COVID, the staff reduction in all government agencies has caused such a big backlog. Because I know that U visas and the VAWAs, which are also specialized visas, they're backlogged for like 5, 6 years, 7 years. So that's a lot of it. And a lot of it because they haven't restaffed those departments. And they haven't hired new staff. And I don't think they're on a hire freeze or anything, but just it's not a priority in our country to assist those that are here wanting to do it the right way, right? So
can you share a little bit more about the contributions? And I don't just mean economic contributions. I know a lot of times when we talk about immigrants, it's like, oh, well, they're paying taxes, so they're a worthwhile human being. Like, it's so much beyond that.
We're tolerated,
right?
Because we pay taxes.
Oh, I know. But I mean, that's a fact too that I don't think a lot of people understand, that even if you are an undocumented immigrant, you are still contributing so much into these systems that you'll never get to benefit from.
The Medicare system, the Social Security system,
paying into it.
They'll never see it unless they become get that status, that coveted status that everybody wants. They may be able to tap into their Social Security that they contributed to for so many years. But our community, and I'm not just talking about the Latino community, I'm talking about the Africans that we have, the Egyptians that we have here, Bosnians that we have here, the Asians that we have here. We bring rich culture. We bring a lot of culture. We bring music. We bring food. I mean, you love our food, you just don't love us. It's a way to put it, right? It's not just the economic, as you say, but a lot of have their own businesses. They create businesses here, right? So we contribute not just to the tax system or the economic system, but we bring knowledge, like bring exposure. We're not LA. I get that, right? Where you can go and everybody speaks Spanish and you see our culture so vibrant there, but it's growing. It's growing, and we need to embrace that. That it's not just the taxes that we pay or the hotel beds that we're making or the houses that we're building or the burgers that we're flipping. We bring so much more. We bring another language, because that's a superpower. If you know more than one language, that's a superpower. So we bring the language, we bring the culture, we bring the food, we bring the music, entertainment. We contribute so much more to our community other than just paying into the tax system.
What are some of the pieces of your culture that help fuel you today? Things that you learned growing up that you still hold dear and you use as your strength through this work?
For me, the one thing, I try to do all the things that I can to teach my grandsons because they're biracial. And so I want them not to lose, because as our lineage and our children grow and we marry outside of our Latino race, I mean, you still have that. Your grandma, your great-grandma, your great-great-grandpas that came to Idaho were Latinos from Mexico, right? And so I try to instill that with my children by speaking the language at home. I do the Dia de los Muertos. I create a huge altar in my house for my kids to see. We do a tamalada. That means everybody comes together in my home and we make tamales for Christmas, right? I listen to the music. I love Tejano music. And there's a difference, people. So of Tejano music and all the music out there, I love Tejano music. And so I play that at home. So I embrace so many things because it's important to me to give that to my grandsons and my grandchildren as they're growing up. And then hopefully they'll say, oh, I remember my grandma. We used to go to grandma's and make menudo or eat menudo. And I don't make tortillas at all. I do have a sister that makes fresh flour tortillas still. My mother used to make mounds and mounds of tortillas. And my mother was probably the best cook ever.
Wow.
Yeah, I can say that deeply because the people in Wilder would come to her for, people call them breakfast tacos. We call them breakfast burritos. They'd ask her to make tamales. She would sell dozens of tamales because they looked for her to do that. And so so those are the things I bring to for my family, that things that I want to hold on to. My dad was a musician, so I try to instill that not only to my children as they were growing up, but now my grandchildren.
For Idahoans that are wanting to be more supportive, engaged, involved, part of the solution, do you have any thoughts of where to start?
That's really a tough question. It really is a hard question because don't be there just to be there, right? You need to educate, ask, inform yourself so that you know, because you're never going to know what we have gone through. You're never going to understand. Don't get me wrong. I love our allies. I love their support, but sometimes you're just there to be there, right? Like, here I am, see me? Mm-hmm. And that's as far as it goes. And so for me as an ally, and to be supportive, to really do the work, like really do the work, come with us and do the work. Go with us to voter reg. Go with us to, the Capitol building and fight for our rights that they're trying to take away from us. Learn about our culture. Don't just be there to be there is how I look at it. Mm-hmm. And I do appreciate it, but don't just be there to be there.
Like when it's trendy. And when I say Idahoans, I don't mean to separate out any type. I just mean like in general, anyone in the community. Obviously, we're all Idahoans together in this, and it's going to impact everybody. Changes that happen will impact the whole community.
Absolutely. It takes a community and it's something I tell my family, or even my husband, I'm like, your family, like our family, our community gets involved to really try to bring change. We have to be the ones to do it. I appreciate my allies trying to do, but who cares? Because they're not, people see it like That's their job. That's their work, right? We have to be seen. Our community has to be seen. We have to know that. They have to know. Legislation has to know. Our community has to know. Our cashiers at the grocery store need to know that we have rights. We're human, and we're going to band together, and we're going to fight for those rights. I would, appreciate at the gathering, we had a couple Caucasian ladies, and I appreciated them because they came to learn. They wanted to learn. They listened, and they were within us, right? I'm tired of us as a community apologizing for whatever reason and not allowing them to have that privilege. So I'm going to share a story with you. And this just happened this week. I went into a grocery store. I won't say their name. And I went to get some items, and I purchased an item, and I said, what did that ring up as? And she said, 12 something. I said, well, the label back there said $9.99. And she was, are you sure? And I'm like, yes. And so she walked around to go check. And I said, well, I'm going with you. And so she pulled up the label because it was being covered by the merchandise. And I said, see, $9.99. And she looks at it and she reads it. She goes, oh, it's a misplaced label. It needs to be over here. And this one needs to be over there. And she says, well, that's what happens when you hire a DEI. And I said, excuse me? And I'm very facial. You'll know I'm mad. And and my voice changes immediately, my tone. And I'm like, excuse me, what do you mean by DEI hire? And she looked at me. She knew I was really upset. And she said, oh, it's too long to explain. Just like, whatever. So then I said, she said, do you still want it? And I said, yes, I do. And then I said, are you the owner? And she says, oh, no. And she gave me her name, like really proud. I'm like, I said, okay, well, I'll reach out to the owners later today. And I didn't even thank her. I just grabbed my things and left because I thought that was so uncalled for.
Yeah.
It was a mislabel. That's it. Somebody made a mistake. I'm sorry. Would you like to still purchase?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we need to call them out on like that. Oops, sorry. Edit. We need to call them out, like quit allowing them to have that type of privilege. Quit apologizing and quit demand that respect. I don't care if you don't have legal status here until we start saying we're not going to allow this anymore. It will continue.
Have you had any other, you had shared earlier that you wanted to talk about some experiences you've had since Election Day. Is there anything else?
Well, that was just one of them.
Yeah.
That's just one of them. Right now, I went into a pharmacy to buy this amazing Santa with a piñata and his sarape. And I saw it on TikTok and I said, I want that Santa. I need him. And I go to pay, and what does she say? She says, oh, wow, that's the first one we've sold here. Like, are you insulting me? Or are you offended because he's a Latino Santa? I don't know what was the remark for, right? Yeah. It's not needed. And I said, well, I'm glad I'm buying him. I said, because I love him. He's beautiful. I'm taking him home to put in my house. I get irritated. Mm-hmm. But when we just stay silent, that gives them more power to do those kinds of things, right? We at the gathering, we had a young lady tell us that it was really hard for her not to move out of the way. She was at the grocery store. She was looking at some items. Lady come in with her. She goes, are you going to get out of the way or what? Wow. Just like that. And she said, I wanted to say, I'm sorry and move. But she thought about it. She says, no, I have every right to be here, to stand here. If she needs to get around me, I don't need to move. And so those things were already here, but they're becoming more prevalent. Like it's being more freely open to do. Like we've gave them the right to do that to any one of us. But more so to marginalized communities. That's just, yeah.
That's interesting you talk about this instinct to apologize if you're part of the marginalized group. Like, I think we see that for me as a woman too. Like I have this natural instinct to like apologize first or like laugh if I'm uncomfortable,
Right.
or to make make sure the other person's comfortable and I can just like exit the scene as quickly as possible. And so when you bring that up, it's like, yeah, there's nothing to apologize
No,
for.
there's nothing to apologize for. I'm not going to apologize that I'm a person of color or a woman or an educated woman, in fact, right? Because people don't like that. Like, wow, she knows a lot and she's Mexican. And that's the honest truth. I mean, you laugh, you giggle about it, but I know that it is a part of the culture here. That, like, when they say, like, where are you from? Because I have a sister who's very much dark complected than us. And they'll ask her, like, where are you from? She goes, from Idaho. No, like, where are you from? Like, where were you born? She goes, in Texas, but I was raised in Idaho. And they're so, like, baffled. Or like, wow, you speak such good English. Well, I hope so. I was raised here, went to school here. I'm a citizen.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't I speak perfect English?
Yeah.
So
That would get so old.
Yeah.
And frustrating.
It is frustrating. And like I said, I mean, that happened to me in the 70s and it was more covert. Now it's just like so liberal. It's just so free to do it. It's like common. It's acceptable. And it's not. We need to, as a community, we need as a people to stop apologizing and call them out on their crap. Call them out on it. Like, what do you mean DEI? Or what do you mean you don't, what's wrong with my Santa? Right? We need to call them out. If they're uncomfortable, then they need to think about what they're going to say when they open their mouth. Because you're offending me. And I have every right to be here as you do.
To be here as you are. Yeah, I totally agree. What do you see coming next in the next few months as PODER? I know you're doing more trainings and collaborations. And
we're hoping to be able to really be more visible, know that we're a power to reckon with, that we are mobilizing our families, we are moving in the right direction to where we're going to say we're not going to stand for this anymore. You're not going to do this to us. We're not going to let you pass that anti-immigrant bill in our legislation this year. That is our goal. That is our goal for PODER for these next 4 years. It's not just January through March. It's for the next 4 years.
Longer term plan. Have you found moments of hope and success in bringing people together that maybe didn't understand each other at first? And part of my work too is trying to do that as well with people that we serve, and then communities that might not have a lot of education about that, and like, what moves the needle, what helps people truly.
Had you asked me that 2 years ago, I would have said, oh, I'm really frustrated. I can't get my people mobilized. I can't get them to understand that what my work is to protect them. My work is for them, and I need their support, right? After the gathering, I came away with a new look. I was going to retire come April.
Like, oh no.
And then I said, I cannot retire. I feel like this is the time, really the time for me to stay and move forward with PODER and help them in this movement, because I see people are hungry for it, where it wasn't 2 or 3 years ago. Even in 2016, it wasn't. Nobody, they thought it was going to be okay. And we just gave them 4 extra years of fuel to prepare for when they take office again. And so I do hope that we have success. I think we will have success in Idaho. I think we'll do well in mobilizing. And my goal is to mobilize young people, especially you're 18 and over, even younger, because that's when they're going to learn, right, to be part of the movement. Resilience.
Well, Raquel, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything else you wanted to add or talk about before we wrap up?
No, I appreciate you having us, me, to represent PODER of Idaho and being able to share my story and my own frustrations with my own husband and my family and what we go through and the fear that all of us because my kids know that I'll be alone. My kids know that the boys won't have a grandpa because they look at him as their grandpa. There's just so much that evolves with this deportation rhetoric. And so I do appreciate you having me. I appreciate being able to put out how we're feeling, what we're thinking, and making people or my allies like, this is real, folks. And doesn't matter. I always say, I don't care where you are in the socioeconomic line. If you are white, you have more privilege than I'll ever have. And I'll end with that, because you'll never, ever understand where we're coming from. But I would appreciate you to get informed and educated so you can be a partner in the fight.
Yeah, and you're really bringing home, like, families is something that's talked about across the political spectrum, like valuing family above most anything else. And so when it comes down to it, it's the peace of families that we're fighting for, so that you don't have to have that limbo and that fear and that anxiety that shouldn't have to plague your life on a day-to-day basis. It's peace for families to be together and to live their lives and to have a community where they belong and contribute and don't have this thing hanging over their head. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much
and thank you for having me.
For sharing. Yeah. And if people want to connect with PODER, they can find you can you talk about your YouTube?
We have a YouTube channel, and it's called Pláticas con Poder. And I have conversation with, I had an attorney about the parole in place when they were trying to have that executive order. I've talked to the ACLU. I've had 3 ACLU members come in, one on civic engagement, one on a study that was done of Latino students in Canyon County being, I don't want to say that it was targeted, but we were seeing that they were being reprimanded at a higher level than their peers. And then just last night I had Paul that came in from the ACLU, and we did on LGBTQ plus community and immigrant right community. And then I also had Idaho Voices for Children and the American Cancer Society on the YouTube with us. So we're fairly new. So please follow, like, and subscribe.
Yes.
And share. And then we have our Instagram, which is also PODER of Idaho, and we have a Facebook.
Great. Yeah, I follow you on Instagram, and there's always so much good information, trainings, events. So I really appreciate all that you do and all that PODER is doing. So thank you so much.
And thank you so much.
And if you would like to connect with Mosaics, if you have questions, feedback, any suggestions for future episodes, please do email us at mosaics@idahorefugees.org. Thank you. Thank you for joining the conversation. For more information on how to be involved with refugee resettlement, please visit idahorefugees.org. Mosaics is produced by the Idaho Office for Refugees with grant support from the M.J. Murdoch Charitable Trust. Music by the Afrosonics. Production in partnership with SB Studios.